Welcome back to the AI-Native Telco Summit, part of our DSP Leaders coverage. And time now for our live Q&A show. I'm Guy Daniels, and this is the first of two Q&A shows. We have another one tomorrow. It's your chance to ask questions on the application of artificial intelligence by service providers. Now, earlier today, we held a panel discussion that looked at how to enable the AI-native telco and the transformation process required. We have already received a lot of questions from you, a record number, in fact. But if you haven't yet sent in a question, then please do so now using the Q&A form on the website. And if we don't answer them today, we will try and get to them tomorrow. Well, let's now meet our guests who are going to help answer your questions. And joining us live on the program today are Anshul Bhatt, who is Head of SimWorld Solutions at Rakuten Symphony, Beatriz Ortega, who is EMEA Telco Business Development Manager at Red Hat, and Joe Kristofic, who is Head of Product Planning Network Automation at Fujitsu. Hello everyone, it is good to see you all. Well, let's get started because the most popular questions we have received by far concern use cases. So I'm going to combine a few of them and ask you about what are the AI use cases for telcos. And let's have the easy, quick wins and then maybe ones that will take more time and effort and perhaps discuss some brand new use cases that will arise. Joe, do you want to comment first?
Sure, yeah. So there's use cases on multiple fronts being explored with the operator today. You can look at the application and enterprise layer offerings, and then also the operator and management side of the network, the cost savings realm. Really what you're looking at, what are the big drivers, the biggest bang for your buck on the use cases? And we're seeing a lot around cost savings, optimizations on the network. What can we learn about our network and the data that we've extracted from the network and look for those optimizations? So there's been use cases around detecting anomalies and time series prediction type things to understand network flows and things of that nature. And in addition to that, there's been a big push, in particular around 5G networks on energy cost savings optimizations. These are high-powered intensive networks. And so the optimizations, just the leveraging AI and ML models to explore the cost savings aspect is really been a big focus area in leveraging a machine learning as a technology for that. As we start to move forward, I think with good data management, we'll start to see enterprise applications, edge applications spawn with many of the providers enabling that, having access to data from the network. And then long term, I think you're going to start to see more generative AI type implementations. If you think about the network as a big dictionary and library of things happening underneath, leveraging those modeling techniques to explore that and things like we're seeing with LLMs. So down the road, and that really is enabled by having good data management as a foundation and core to that.
Joe, that's fantastic. Thanks very much for going through those for us. We'll come to Anshul in a moment, but Beatrice, did you want to add some thoughts and what you see maybe as some of the use cases for telcos?
No, I only wanted to mention that really this is a journey, okay? You need just at the beginning, just small use cases as Joe was mentioning before, and later just you can just talk about autonomous network or just 5G orchestrator or something like that, okay? In order to build one technical ecosystem that is just managed by artificial intelligence or by directly the business requirement automatically, okay? So that is the goal, okay? But you cannot just work directly in the goal. You need just to put the steps, the different steps and pieces in this journey in order to generate complex use cases on top of simpler use cases.
Thanks very much, Beatrice. And I think we've actually got a question we're going to look at a bit later in the program about the journey itself and the steps required. So this is certainly of great interest to viewers. Anshul, let me come across to you and your thoughts on some of the use cases that we're seeing now and in the future for AI.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Guy. And I totally agree with Beatrice, by the way, that our vision and aim is to go towards the autonomous network. But at the same time, it is important to take this, smaller steps at this time, or low-hanging fruits, as the question mentions, in order to address some of the key use cases. We already discussed autonomous monitoring, energy orchestration. A couple of other interesting use cases that we have implemented are around the auto config audits. So, for example, Telco World has been used to doing config audits based on golden templates or baseline templates, which are defined by a human, which might not necessarily be the best possible config for your network. So let AI decide what the ideal config is, and using an ML model, we have actually been able to understand what a perfect or the golden config might look like, generated by an AI instead of decided by someone sitting in the lab. So I think that's a very interesting use case. When it comes to network build out and acceptance too, we have implemented a couple of AI ML based use cases, such as image recognition based site acceptance. So, for example, when the field survey is happening on while installing the site, typically the field engineers would take some photographs and they would send it over to a person sitting on a web desktop, and the person on the desktop would approve them in order to approve the construction, which takes like from hours to a couple of days even sometimes, and the guy might have to go back to the field in order to make some corrections if needed. But if we use the AI based image detection techniques, then the feedback can be instantaneous and corrections can be made then and there. So that is a very interesting use case that has saved us a lot of time and money. Similarly, once the site installations are done, the acceptance of a site, of an on-air site, in terms of the KPIs, the alarms, the construction, and bunch of other parameters, this whole process in a traditional telco operations takes almost a week. But with the help of ML and advanced data pipelines that we have, we are able to do this process in as fast as 40 minutes. So I think these are some of the low-hanging fruits. And of course, the long-term journey being autonomous networks. And as you mentioned, happy to discuss that more in the upcoming question.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Anshul. Let's see what comes up as the program progresses, but we certainly have had a lot of questions around use cases. I'm just looking at our system now and seeing a couple more come in as you've been speaking even. There are some specific questions I'd like us to get to though, and the next one's around security. Is there an increased cybersecurity risk from AI? And what new threat surfaces are you seeing and how do you expect to mitigate them? For example, asks this questioner, the risk of AI developed code being increasingly embedded in products and services. Beatrice, are you able to give some insight into the possible increased cybersecurity threat?
Yes, indeed. Okay. The technology, the artificial intelligence technology introduced new cybersecurity risks, okay? And it's expanding just through its surface for multiple reasons, really, okay? The first thing is if the artificial intelligence is improving the capabilities that we have for automation and in order to have in real time, so that is improve as well just the hackers' capabilities and technology. So one hacker now can be able, in order to create one malware that is able to learn by itself, okay, in order to be generated and just be more and more accurate just to the market or to the specific goal, okay. So of course they are able just to create more sophisticated and targeted attacks. That's really true. In the other hand, yes, the algorithms, the artificial algorithms are created or are just highly dependent just on the data. And the hackers are can be able just to modify the data sources or just to generate artificial data. And with this artificial data that are fake data, you can just have just algorithms and the outcome will not be just the real outcomes. In the other hand, yes, as you mentioned it, we have the IoTs or the devices. Yes, more and more, yes, the intelligence will be and the processing will be in the cars, in the automotive cars, or just will be in the drones, okay? And that will be another point of fail that could be possible, yes, to be attacked by the hackers. We can mention it as well, yes, the risk of the data. So if we are able to interact, yes, with generative artificial intelligence with more customers, sometimes we will use data that are critical data for this customer. I mean, just healthy data or just, banking data. And of course, again, that will be a very good area for new area for the hackers in order to obtain this data or in order to manipulate these algorithms, okay, with fake data. So yes, we need just to consider the security very seriously in this area, because it's not the answer is not one day. You cannot just close all the doors just one day, because this is just moving and generating new solutions, new use cases, and new risks just continuously. So you need to monitor as much as possible. You need just to work with the standards, try to work with the new functionalities, solution technologies in order to protect yourself. Okay, but now, according just we were talking before with the edge, we will have more scope, or the scope is higher or big or wider in order to control all the doors there. Okay, sometimes we can do that if it's just closer to the network, but sometimes in the edge or in the device could be a little bit more complex, definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Beatrice. As you say, this is continually moving and evolving. We've got to be very, very aware. Anshul, let's come in with thoughts from you on this question.
Sure, Guy. Yeah, I think security and privacy were always the top consideration items when even it came to the automation journey. So with AI, it becomes all more important than ever. And I think the right way to address this is to have the right processes. So like we have discussed before, that automation, it's like a nuclear button. It can, destroy your entire network too, if gone wrong. Similarly, in the era of AI too, it's very important to have the right DevSecOps processes. For example, we do the code reviews for all our code that goes into the production, be it machine generated or human generated. And with having the right process and the CI/CD pipeline, which involves the approvals, the right performance testing, the peer reviews of the code, it is we have seen that we have even found some errors during these peer reviews of the FDML code, for example. So I think having the right process is absolutely important. Another aspect that is very important to mandate as a process is the right data governance practice. With LLMs and more assisted developer tools, more and more people are automating. So at the same time, more people are accessing data. So it becomes very important to have the right controls in terms of data governance and an approval process in order to make sure that the right data or the right information that is needed for a given use case is the only thing that is actually included into the code, instead of having the access which is not authorized or not required. So I think right data governance and DevSecOps are the right methods to sort of prevent and tackle this issue of security and privacy.
Great, thanks very much, Anshul. Anshul, can I just come back to you with a point, because just in the past minute we've had a question in which picks up on what you've just said, really, about zero errors and false positives and negatives that are associated with AI and ML. And it's a very simple question. It's, how close is AI to zero error? Is zero error going to be possible within telcos? Have you got any thoughts about that and getting towards zero errors?
Yes, I think Right now, to say that AI has zero errors would be too early to say. Specifically in the telco domain, where the information is very domain specific, and the entire area of telecom networks, like every operator to operator, the deployments are different, and context and the environments are different. So I think it is early right now to say that we are in the zero error state. But at the same time, knowing that what would be the percentage of false positives or true negatives would be good to create the protective mechanisms around the AI models. So as an example, we are implementing some of the AI recommended next best action kind of models. But in this case, we don't take those actions automatically yet because of the percentage error in there. So we always have a person to approve the decision, yes or no, depending on the action. If it's a read only action, then maybe, but if it's a write only service impacting action, then definitely not. So I think right now we are not at that stage. But if we don't start training the models right now, if we don't start validating and giving the right feedback now, then that state would even be farther. So I think we have to start, but at the same time not assume that AI is perfect. It will need to go through that training cycle of a couple of years at least, for a particular operator deployment in order to get that confidence.
Great. Thanks very much, Anshul. And Joe, let's come over to you on this one, because as I said, this question has just come in a few minutes ago. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I just want to add to that. Keep in mind, AI is a tool. It's modeled based on data, and the thing about machine learning, the benefit is that it evolves and learns over time. And so, to say should we expect zero error, I think would be going into it a little bit incorrect in that, yes, we're achieving optimization over time, much like we just heard Angela there explain, and it needs to be trained. And this all goes back to the data, the sanity of the data, and training it correctly and being able to have those checks in place when you go to execute a model on data into the network. So it's meant to be viewed as a tool to enable things that otherwise we haven't had the opportunity to be able to do on the networks, learning from a vast amount of data in short order, short period of time. So, of course, 100% zero error is that's very challenging. But if we leverage it in the perspective that we look at as a tool set for these use cases or cost optimizations, that's how we should look at it.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Joe. Well, Joe, I'm going to stay with you to start us off on our next viewer question, if that's okay. And this is a question we received in about data. And the question asks, there have been previous initiatives to use the vast amount of data generated within a CSP's environment, but there have been few real valuable use cases and success stories. What is different this time? So there we go. There's a question, a bit of skepticism about the ability to use data so far. What do you think?
Well, I think over the course of the last few years, what we've seen are operators looking at a big picture of a lot of use cases, and then maybe we can get some winners out of that, a few winners. So let's explore opportunities and then the data necessary to drive those automations, and how can we bake in AI to enable things and learn from that data. And so, yes, correct in that there's been exploration in many areas, but we've also seen winners along this journey as well, whether it's operating the network or things like a fleet management, or we looked at edge use cases with what we just heard about the image recognition. So these start to stack up. And so sometimes there may not be a recognition as you stack up these use cases, the value that you've driven based on the aggregate total of these use cases. We're looking at it from a small use case areas, and this is primarily driven by the silo of data on the network. And so if we have certain vendors operating parts of the network, that data management scheme hadn't been thought about previously. And so we've had to look at those small use cases. But I would just remind the audience, as we stack these use cases, there's aggregate benefit to that and value to operating the network that sometimes may not be rolled up together. But I think we're starting to see it over the years. If you're looking for that big hitter, that big win that's going to save millions of dollars just from one single use case, that's just going to be learning on how to exploit this data and a continual evolution of baking in AI into the network. But I would just remind the audience about the aggregate use case total value that we've been adopting over the last few years.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Very good point there. Anshul, let's come across to you and your comments on this question about the use of data by telcos.
Sure, Guy. I've actually been on the both sides of the thing. Like I was working in the CSP and also on the software vendor side. So I think one of the problems that CSP used to face before is that they used to rely on a third party to do the AI ML work for them. In a lot of cases, not all. And that often resulted into not achieving the impact that they would have expected. And I think primarily it is simply because, if it's your own data, then no one else knows the nuances and the nitty-gritties of the data like yourself, right? So I think in that sense, things are changing now. We are seeing more and more open architectures. For example, in our Rakuten Symphony offering, the platform is completely open. It's a self-service, low-code, no-code data pipeline builder. So it allows CSPs to take more control on what they want to do, how they want to do it. And at the same time, the point that we already discussed before, like having a right data strategy was also missing before. That even though there was a lot of data, but it was all in silos. And even having a distributed data strategy is not a problem. But as long as the data templates are exposed in a common format so that other data scientists can discover it, use it, and explore it, I think it should do the job. So I think right data strategy and also open architectures that can help CSPs to play themselves with their own data are two major factors, that are different from the previous generations. And that's what makes us more hopeful about the AI revolution in telco this time.
Great, thanks, Anshul. So optimism there, that's good to hear. Beatrice, let's come across to you.
No. I wanted just to mention about infrastructure. It's true that 1 century ago, just the telco were in monolithic and very isolated areas, as we mentioned before. Just talking about artificial intelligence across the company was almost impossible. Okay, now we have, first of all, computing, higher computing. And I'm saying that because the artificial intelligence algorithms requires high computing in order to make the testing and in order to process the models, okay? So we have now GPUs, and we are talking now about the edge computing. So the computing is higher and is cheaper. Before it was very, very expensive. Now it is expensive, but it's cheaper than before, okay? And now we have the ecosystem that was mentioning before, okay? That with the cloud native, with everything in cloud, okay? Now really the telco are thinking and working in cloud native, in Kubernetes. Just that means just flexibility in order to adopt and just move and replace a new application. So they are more open. And one important thing is about the culture, okay? So it's not very easy combine the business goals that have the marketing or just the business unit in a telco with the technology, okay, with the data science that are very technical. Now, more and more, the agile culture and just that kind of new methodologies are combining just technical background with business goals. And that means that we can create, micro organizations that are very, very focused and are more or less just working like a team for one specific goal. Okay, before it was not possible to do that, and it's true that we have in a very competitive sector. Okay. Now, before we were competing just with the tariffs or just with the small services. Now we need just to be more creative in order to offer security or home services or just other kind of application that more and more interact with the customer, and that's require artificial intelligence. So I think today is the right moment, not for the main goals, okay, for this goal that at the end of the journey, but in order to start use cases with more and more artificial intelligence consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Beatrice, thank you very much indeed. Thanks everyone for those comments. Well, let's pause for just a moment because it's time now to check in on our audience poll for the AI Native Telco Summit. The question we are asking this week is, how can telcos best leverage AI innovation to improve operational efficiency and develop new services? And you can see the current number of votes right here. And it looks like working with vendor and cloud partners to develop new AI capabilities is leading the pack there with 73%. Also showing very strongly is a focus on selected key areas for AI projects. Kind of goes against this whole holistic approach though. Right, if you have yet to vote, then please do so. We will take a final look during tomorrow's live Q&A show. Now, back to the audience Q&A, and I'm going to combine a couple of questions here. Beatrice, I'm going to come to you first because you mentioned this in one of your earlier answers. Are there any intermediate steps that telcos need to take before reaching the end state of being AI native? What are the basic requirements for implementing AI in the network, and what building blocks do they need to put in place now?
Again, this is a journey. Okay, it's the same that we were mentioning just for the use case. It's a journey for the company. So you will not be one AI native just from one day to the next one. But it's true that if you are worried about the data, data and quality of this data, I mean, just if you are working with the data governance that you are generating, just with the data integration, considering the sources, if you are working with one specific technology or infrastructure, that means just scalable infrastructure in order to offer the computational demands of the artificial intelligence algorithms, cloud services, as I mentioned before. If you are worried for the talent and skilled developer in order to adopt artificial intelligence training programs, in order to collaborate and to look for the right partnerships. If you have you have to take care about the security and ethical consideration, because the guidelines means that the customer should feel just comfortable, and secure. And you need just to protect yourself with the security protocols, but at the same time, just follow the rules that they define, for instance, the GDPR that we have here in Europe, in order to be conscious that sometimes the customer data that you are using are very critical and are really data from customers, The proprietary is is the customer. You need essential, one direct relation between the business and the use case, You need to make one right prioritization for the use cases that you are generating in order to have the first and the basic as a very solid fundamental, and later put on top just more and more use cases. You need to create one very strategic journey in this case. It's not very easy because the magic is not done here, So you need to test with the proof of concepts and pilots, And sometimes work in a collaborative solution with some vendors in order to work together in one specific use case. You have to be able to monitoring and improve continuously, not only the security because the hackers that we mentioned it before, just because the security or the needs that you are using for your data, your algorithms are more and more just changing the sources. Sometimes you can change and be more efficient the models, You need just to improve continuously this one. Be very conscious about the regulatory compliance and educations and communication. If you have like this, if you are taking care about your data, if you are just open to the new solution and the new ecosystem with the new technologies that are coming, if you have standards and fundamentals in order to consider just the data that sometimes is not your data, is the customer data, and if you are managing your skills oriented just to these new trends that not only depends, as we mentioned it before, for third parties, just in order to convert or grow your employees in order to work in data. Artificial intelligence means just one kind of data. You need data in order to process or just to involve machine learning or deep learning in order to create insights, okay? And everyone had to have this in mind, okay? So if you have these fundamentals, the journey will be easier.
Thank you, Beatrice. And it's been a popular question today, and it really sort of aligns with the earlier panel discussion we had about enabling the AI native telco. Joe, we'll come to you next, and then we'll go to Anshul. But Joe, what are your thoughts?
Just to add to that, if you're looking for a starting place, think about your data. Don't worry about AI yet. Think about how you're sourcing this data from the network, your data pipeline, providing integrity to that data, and then the standardization of it northbound into your app development, your data scientist. So think about that architecture and how you plan to enable leveraging machine learning, leveraging the expertise of data scientists. But if you don't have a good architecture on how that data is sourced from multiple vendors, multiple layers of the network, multiple domains of the network, and you're just looking at, I'm going to look at AI in this particular part of the network and do a use case, that's what you'll do. And so I'm seeing in the industry a cross-section of operators who are really putting a key focus on data, and some who are just looking at corner case, hey, let's look at some data here in this space. And I would suggest, as a starting point to accelerate your AI adoption, really have a sound architecture in place on that data management.
Thank you very much, Joe, for that. And Anshul, I promised to come across to you, so let's get your thoughts on this one as well.
Yeah, I think most of the points were covered by Joe and Beatrice, and I think very good points. To add into that, since Rakuten has been doing this for last couple of years, we would also recommend to have the right organization structure in place to make it successful. So what we did was we had this 4 verticals, like an AI business office, AI products team, AI platform development team, and then AI ML ops. And I think between these 4 organizational sections, the idea was to start off with creating the right backlog for AI use cases. So everyone wants to do AI, but right now, if you start listing down the use cases, every telco might have different problems and pain points. So I think the first step is to create the right backlog of use cases. And in order to organically create this backlog, you can embed the AI and automation based actions into your day-to-day incident management, change management, test management processes, so that the backlog it's a healthy backlog, or the flow of backlog can be maintained as you go forward in this journey. And at the same time, when it comes to use cases, I think the right way to implement the use cases is by embedding different data scientists into various network domain teams, and provide them with the right platform. So I think we all discussed the importance of a common data and AI platform strategy. So I think if the data scientists do not have a common platform to go and discover and explore the data, and then to create data pipelines, ML pipelines to evaluate it, I think little success would be achieved, because in the traditional world, it used to take around 7 to 8 months for a data scientist to even deploy an ML model into a production network. So I think to reduce this time from months to weeks to days, you need a strong AI and data platform strategy. And I think last but not the least is the ML ops aspect of it. And I think Beatrice touched upon it, that you cannot simply develop and deploy these AI models and leave them in a production network. Obviously, the algorithm is a very important part of it, but there are a lot of things before and after an AI model that are also important in the process. For example, the process to develop and deploy the AI model. We discussed a bit about the DevSecOps processes and the CI/CD pipelines to deploy and maintain the hygiene of the models that get deployed in the production. At the same time, once the models are out there working in production, it is very important to keep a track on if there is a drift in the model output, if the hyperparameters need to be tuned regularly, and how frequent is your retraining interval, and how much is the model prediction success rates or inference success rates based on the capacity and the demand. So I think it is very important to treat the ML models in production also as an operational problem, and have the right operations and processes defined around them that we broadly classify as ML ops in as a terminology in today's world. So I think having a right organization structure, having a right inflow of backlogs integrated into the network processes, having a common data and AI platform in order to enable the data scientists to do their job more efficiently, and at the same time having the comprehensive AI ML ops in order to operationalize and and make sure that these are production grade models. I think between these items, every telco can take some steps towards this eventually to reach towards an autonomous networks of future. So that would be our recommendation from Rakuten.
Thanks very much, Anshul. And just to let our viewers know that tomorrow we have a panel that looks at AI ops, so which sort of leads very nicely from your answer there. And also, you were talking about 7 to 8 months deployment for an ML solution there, which leads into our next question nicely. And Joe, I'm going to come to you first for this next question, but the question asks, the adoption of AI in telcos has been so slow. In fact, one of our viewers calls it glacial. And the question goes on to ask, why is this? Is it the highly domain-specific requirements of telcos or some other factor? And what can AI solution providers do to improve this trend? Joe, there's strong views there, but what do you think?
Sure, yeah, and I think we've hit on a lot of these topics throughout our conversation, but I'll just highlight, if the comparison is web scale, the web scales are set up differently. If you're looking at a global e-commerce store or web application where data comes in, stored, data is crunched, data output, and that application is very centered around that data that is part of that application. So adopting ML into that becomes a scalable virtualization problem statement along with the models. When you look at telcos were not inherently architected that way from the ground up. So when you think about all of the silos, the different data domains, the data was not used in the way that it can be leveraged moving forward. So there's a bigger problem statement here when it comes to how can we wrangle this data, and like we just talked about, how do you manage the team structures of managing this data, ML adoption, operationalizing ML models, managing those, and then tying that back into the data from multiple vendors, multiple silos. So that's a large problem statement there. And I think what we're starting to see is the recognition of a lot of those areas, and we're starting to see solutions to them being baked into the telco environment. So I think that you're going to see, while it's a little bit like static friction a little bit coming into it, there's all these different challenges that resolutions are starting to come about, whether it's from a vendor in this space or it's from the operator themselves and how they're structuring teams and data. And then once we hit that, I think we're going to start to see a little more rapid pace on the adoption of AI, the more value behind AI that can be contributed back to the telco. So that's a view on it. I think over the next few years, we'll start to see more adoption, more discussion, and more use cases that we can highlight from an industry perspective collectively together.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It'd be good to reconvene and go through some of those use cases as we develop them. Anshul, let's go across to you for your comments.
Yeah, I think when it comes for the time to deploy AI, we have seen this cycle, as I was mentioning before. It takes several months for the data scientists, to deploy their model. And as they used to say that, in the older traditional world, there used to be this adage called 70% of a job of a data scientist is to massage and make the data sensible before applying a model on that. So I think the major bottleneck is this 70% of effort that needs into the data management, and in telcos, it's all more because of the data's data sources lying around in the silos. So I think the right data strategy, and again, like as I mentioned before, it's not necessary to bring all your data into one common data platform. We understand it might be challenging, especially for the brownfields, but at least having the right metadata dictionary. So for example, if a data scientist wants to search that which all tables contain the cell ID, then at least those level of metadata definitions should be in place to enable a metadata dictionary or a metadata search on top of your existing data sources. So I think having the right metadata and data strategy, and at the same time, I think as we touched upon briefly, that the standards are also evolving towards making it more easier. For example, RIC, NWDAF, all these new frameworks or standards have this data exposure function defined. So I think once more and more telcos start adapting to these open architectures, more easier it will become for the data scientists to understand and discover various data points, to discover various controllers out there in order to implement their models. So I think together with the right data strategy and with the evolving open standards, I think adhering to them would definitely make this overall time slower than what it is today. Faster, sorry, than what it is today.
Faster, absolutely. We don't go any more glacial, because our viewer will get very cross and annoyed in that case. Look, we are almost out of time, but I do want to squeeze in one more question if I can. And Beatrice, I'm going to come across to you because I think maybe you also want to pick up on what Ansel just said there. But I just want to get this question in from a viewer as our last question for today, and that is: how can traditional proven AI optimization models based on analytics and machine learning and algorithms, how can all these be integrated with Gen AI approaches? Beatrice, have you got any insights for our viewer on that one?
Wow, this is a very interesting question. Integrating traditional artificial intelligence optimization model based on, and you mentioned it, just analytics, machine learning, and algorithms with the generative artificial intelligence approach involve we need just combine the strength for the both paradigms, okay, in order to create more powerful, flexible, and creative artificial systems. So theoretically, that is amazing. That's good. Okay, but let me just understand first of all what that means. Traditional artificial intelligence optimization models means you will have all the historical data in a data lake. Okay, you will just manage learning patterns and making prediction or optimization based or preference algorithms. Okay, that it means regression models, decision trees, reinforcement learning algorithms. That is the kind of the traditional artificial intelligence that we mentioned. Okay, when we are talking about generative artificial intelligence approaches, we are talking about generative models such as generative adversarial networks (GANs) or variational autoencoders (VAS). Okay, that can generate new data samples that are similar to the given data set. Okay, so for instance, you can generate new data instances by learning the underlying data distribution. Okay, and you will have more data. So considering that, the hybrid models can be combined. Okay, in order predict analytics with generative models and use the traditional predictive knowledge to understand the patterns and trends in this data, and later use the generative model in order to create synthetic data, okay, or samples, new samples in order to align with these specific patterns that are being created with the traditional artificial intelligence. This combination can enhance the diversity of generated data. For the data augmentation with GANs is generative models like the GANs can be used to augment the data sets by generating really realistic, very, very natural, synthetic data. And these models can supplement limited data set. When you need to see a lot of tests with one model in order to test as much as possible. If you are not able to have access to these sources, with the generative artificial intelligence, you can generate the amount of data that you need in order to test. you can transfer the learning, okay? So because transfer learning with GANs is pre-training GANs can be fine-tuning for specific tasks. For instance, training for natural images that can be just defining for generative synthetics medical imaging, again, in order to generate not only traditional data, just images, just sounds, just natural voice, something like that, okay? You can just use the GANs generative artificial intelligence in order to detect anomaly detection. Okay, you can generate again new data and just change the data, and your algorithms that should detect the problems are able or are tested in order to discover the faults that you are generating. Okay. That is the kind of examples that I can consider. Okay, so can be combined and can be just in a continuous feedback loop. Okay, so integrating generative and traditional artificial should be just, in my mind, I think I'm considering that should be iterative. Okay, process. Continuous feedback and monitoring are essential to define both the generative and the traditional model in order to look for the optimal performance.
Beatrice, thanks so much for those insights. That's absolutely fascinating. And Anshul, I think we've got time to just come across to you for comments as well.
Sure. Yes, I think Gen AI and LLMs are the talk of the town, right? And I think in telcos too, we see very interesting use cases combining the legacy models and algorithms with the new approach. So I think, as an example, let's say typically all these SON algorithms and this ML models or whatever automation SON techniques that we had in telco world, the users of these were not the developers of these algorithms. For example, an RF engineer or an RF optimization engineer who would use the SON is not the developer of the SON algorithm. So oftentimes there was this gap where, because the telco NOC or RF engineers are not very much used to software programming, they had to rely on the SON vendors to give whatever algorithm they have and use it. But I think with Gen AI, the telco and the NOC engineers who are not used to the software programming can also code now. So let's say if there is an intent that, I want my interference mitigation algorithm to work slightly in a different way than what my SON algorithm provider or my RAP provider gave, then I can simply tell the Gen AI or the LLM to make those changes, provided that the APIs of the SON or the RAPs are exposed to the Gen AI. It can actually modify the algorithm more custom to the telecom operator, and that too done by the telecom operator's own engineers. So I think Gen AI has these kind of possibilities where the telecom engineers, the networking engineers who are not used to programming or coding their own automations, who are mainly the requirement givers before, can now even code and write their own RApps or even XApps and any other mini apps on their own using the APIs and the exposed endpoints. So I think Gen AI definitely offers more customized and more accurate integration to the existing algorithms based on the telecom operator's own context and requirements. So I think I'm really excited about how Gen AI is going to transform not only what we work on, but also how we do our work. So I think that is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, and to all of us, I think, and we're all excited about the potential ahead. But we are out of time now. Thank you so much to Anshul, Beatrice and Joe for joining us for this live program. And do remember, send in your questions for tomorrow's live Q&A show as soon as you can. Don't leave it too late. And please don't forget the poll. There is still time for you to have your say. Right, here's the agenda for tomorrow, day 2 of the summit, and we have a panel discussion for you on using AI Ops for operational efficiencies. Plus, we've got an interview with Marie-Hélène Brienswear from Orange Business. Until then, thanks for watching and goodbye.